Hello, my name is Richard Chimera, and we're here at the Human-Computer Interaction Laboratory at the University of Maryland at College Park to show you our experiment which evaluated 3 different interfaces for browsing hierarchical tables of contents. This research was sponsored by Sun Microsystems. We took on this research because of the proliferation of online texts in the computer field. These texts, online texts, are used for manuals, documentation, organizational charts, etc., where hierarchies are a popular form for presenting this information. And browsing is an important issue because many users, especially novices, are more comfortable with browsing rather than formulating specific formal queries which the computer then displays the results of. So we'd like to show you now the different forms and interfaces we've used for browsing hierarchical tables of contents. Let me describe for you the design of our experiment. We had a between-subject design so that each participant would only use one interface, but both tables of contents. We had a medium table of contents and a large table of contents, which we'll explain later. Our interfaces did not show the pages of text, only the tables of contents itself. The reason we did this was so that the tasks we used were low cognitive load and we could attribute the differences between the interfaces to the interface features rather than participants perhaps reading the texts, making sure their answers were correct, etc. So by having only the tables of contents visible, we could more accurately attribute differences in performance to the interface features. Here we are looking at our first interface, the stable interface. Let me explain. The table of contents is a book on abnormal psychology with 174 total lines consisting of 8 chapters and an average fan out into sections and subsections of around 5 items. Notice the stable interface lays out the items just as you would find in a book, with chapters appearing with their sections indented and subsections indented further directly under each other. The only navigation technique we have is to scroll, either by one screenful at a time, forwards or backwards, or by one line at a time, continuously or discretely. Our next interface is called the expand-contract interface. The initial state in which the tables of contents appears is by just having the highest level items, or the chapters, appearing. When you find an item of interest, then you click on that item, and the items expand right in line and any number of items can be expanded or contracted to show the subordinate items. Notice the deliberate animation characteristics we use so that users are able to easily determine where the new information appears. This is in contrast to a complete window repaint where the users would not be able to readily know where the new information was appearing. Of course, this interface also allows scrolling. Our third interface is called the Multi-Pane Interface. This has 3 different panes with the chapter items always appearing in the top pane, the section items always appearing in the middle pane, and the subsection items always appearing in the bottom pane. By clicking on an item, its subordinates will appear in the next lowest pane. So by clicking on chapter 5, its sections appear in the middle pane, and notice that automatically the subsection pane gets updated with the first section's items. But if the user decides that 5.2 is of interest, you can click 5.3, 5.4, back to 5.1. Notice that we refresh the screen quickly in the multi-pane interface because users know exactly where the new information is going to appear in the panes below. So therefore, speed can be used in the display. Here are the results that were produced for the medium table of contents. On the vertical axis is which interface was used. On the horizontal axis is the mean time to complete all tasks in seconds. Notice that the stable interface allowed for the quickest times as compared to the expand, contract, and multi-pane interface. However, there was no statistically significant difference between any of the interfaces in the medium table of contents. Here we are viewing the large table of contents with the stable interface. Let me explain that the large table of contents was extracted from the Federal Aviation Administration's Airman's Handbook. Our version consists of 1,296 lines, broken down into 23 chapters with an average fan out into section and subsections of between 5 and 15 items. Again, the only navigation technique in the stable interface is to use scrolling. Whether a screenful at a time, or here, a line at a time. Notice how hard it is to determine what the main points of the table of contents are. Usually the main points are contained in the chapter titles, but yet the chapter titles are separated by a great distance due to the sections and subsection items appearing right in line. Compare this to the expand contract interface. Its initial state shows only the highest level items or the chapter titles. Here's all 23 you can see on one screen. When you find a chapter of interest, you click on it and it expands into the sections. If you find a section of interest, you can click to open into its subsections. Notice again the deliberate animation characteristics that we use to expand and contract items so that users are fully aware at what location new information is being added. Again, many items can be expanded or contracted at any given time. Finally, we have our multi-pane interface where the chapter titles appear in the top pane, the section titles appear in the middle pane, and the subsection titles will appear in the bottom pane. By clicking on a chapter, the section and subsection pane are updated with new information at a very high display rate. This is because users know exactly where the information is going to appear, and so they don't need the extra deliberate animation characteristics that we use in the expand contract interface. Here are the results of the timing data for the large table of contents. Along the vertical axis is which interface was used. Along the horizontal axis is the mean time to complete all tasks in seconds. Notice the stable interface took a very long time to complete all tasks, about 570 seconds. This is in contrast to the expand, contract, and multi-pane interfaces, which were statistically significantly faster than the stable interface. The expand, contract, and multi-pane interfaces were not significantly different from each other. Here are the results of the medium table of contents and large table of contents next to each other for comparison purposes. When we designed the experiment, we predicted, and it seemed obvious, that for a small table of contents, the stable interface would be the clear winner, since all information would be on the screen and not even scrolling would be necessary to find appropriate answers to the tasks. As we can see, even up to the medium table of contents condition, the stable interface performed quite well, slightly edging out the expand, contract, and multi-pane interfaces for performance time. However, notice when you get to the large table of contents that the advanced navigation techniques provided by the expand, contract, and multi-pane interfaces show a clear advantage for browsing effectiveness. One more point I'd like to show is that notice that even with an order of magnitude increase in the size of the table of contents from medium to large, the time to complete a series of tasks increased by only about 20% for the expand, contract, and multi-pane interfaces, and nearly doubled for the stable interface. This is an exciting result and shows that with advanced navigation techniques, even for a large and very large table of contents, users can adequately glean the correct information through browsing through the advanced navigation techniques provided with the expand, contract, and multi-pane interfaces. Some of the practical outcomes of this research shows that either of the dynamic interfaces we studied, the expand, contract, or the multi-pane interface, are especially useful for displaying large hierarchies for browsing purposes. Other outcomes can be found in our technical report that we've produced, care of the HCIL. Future research we'd like to do in this area are twofold. One, to investigate how we can add visual cues to each of these displays, which would map hierarchical structure attributes to physical screen display attributes. For instance, color or shadowing techniques could be used to represent size of the next level down or what have you in the hierarchy. Another avenue of research is to extend the multi-pane interface so that users have more control over how the multi-pane interface operates. A couple ideas we have already is to allow the boundaries between the panes to be adjusted both automatically and by user control, depending on how many items a particular level of the hierarchy might have. The other extension we'd like to investigate in the multi-pane interface is to allow user control over the placement of new information into the appropriate panes. This is no longer really a multi-pane interface, but more of a multi-window interface. Thank you.